Now I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Sky Sports pundit Graeme Souness. Graeme, thanks so much for joining me today. How are you doing?
Morning, I'm very well.
Good, good,
Thank you.
good. Now, Graeme, I just wonder if I'd said to you at the start of the season that Man United would be 3 points clear of Liverpool at the top of the table after 17 games, what would your reaction have been, do you think?
I think, no, I would have said that ain't going to happen. But what you have to say is that we're in the most unusual seasons of unusual seasons. Never in the history, well, that I can remember, that I've witnessed, are we seeing what we're seeing in terms of COVID, playing games without a crowd. It's just a very, very strange season. But fair play to United. They've shown a dogged determination and they've crawled themselves right into the fight.
Yeah, I was going to say it's 9 wins in 11 games for them now in the Premier League. So what are we seeing, do you think, from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's side that we weren't seeing earlier in the season when they were losing badly, really, weren't they, to Crystal Palace, to Tottenham, and they had that bad loss to Arsenal at home as well?
Mm-hmm. Good question. I don't think anyone could answer and be 100% correct with their answer. I think there's for sure, when you start to win games, there's a confidence starts to permeate through the group. They've certainly got that. They're playing with their tails up at the moment. You saw that against Burnley. I mean, with all due respect, it was Burnley, a team that are just outside the relegation zone, fighting for their lives at this early stage. If you go back a week before, they were completely outclassed and outplayed by Man City. So I'm sure Ole will be very much aware of that. He actually said after the City game that, City are a far better team. They're further down the road in their development than United are. But I think for United, they're going to Anfield at a good time. I don't think it's a better time to play Liverpool. Liverpool are a team that are searching for consistency, and that's the one word you would have attached to them in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
The consistency levels have been fantastic. And that's why they've won a couple of big trophies. But this year they're scratching around, and I think you can directly trace it back to losing Virgil van Dijk early on. They've lost Gomez, Matip, dropped Fabinho back in there, just general disruption to what was a very, very settled group of players. So I don't think, for United, I don't think there's a better time that in recent history for United to be going to Anfield. This is as good as it will get from them.
Yeah.
They will go there believing they can get a result.
Absolutely. So, what, from Liverpool's point of view, what do you think the mood will be like around the camp there? Well, do you think they're seriously concerned about Man United, or will the focus be more on their own performance levels?
Well, I would imagine, as always, when you're a top team, you only worry about yourself. Let the opposition worry about you. Now, that's been the case for the last 3 years. This season is different. Liverpool, and it's a fact. It's not me picking a dramatic statement out of the sky. They are huffing and puffing. They're not the same team. They're not finding the same consistency. But they're sitting second in the league, and they will say that even with us not being at it, we're still second in the league and very much still in the fight. Yeah. But this is a big game for them, because it's the bragging rights. Obviously, if there's a game that United want to win, or if there's a game that Liverpool want to win, and you ask them at the start of the season, this is the one. The rivalry is enormous. It's always been there. Two monster football clubs with monster successes behind them, and I think we should get a cracking game. I think Liverpool will go into the game for the first time nervous. They're not. For the last 2 years, it's just been non-stop plaudits for them, and correctly so, because the football's been magnificent. But that's not been there this year consistently, and that's why they've dropped points that you wouldn't have imagined them dropping points. They're not playing with the same. The bully teams, when they're at their best, the absolute bully teams, they're always on the front foot, nicking the ball off the opposition all the time, all over the pitch, especially high up the pitch, and the break on them from there with the 3 very special front players have got. But I don't see that consistently this year. So they've got it all on. United are going there. They're a group of players that feel right now they can go to Anfield and get a result. And if they were to do that, again, the confidence and that just add to the momentum that they've got going for them at the moment.
Yeah, you mentioned the intensity of Liverpool there. I guess that comes with this game, though. It's a different game completely, isn't it, to say the games against West Brom, Newcastle and Southampton, where we've seen Liverpool struggle in recent weeks.
Well, in recent weeks, yeah, but what you'd have to say That's what Liverpool have been particularly good at in the last 3 years. That the players, along with the staff, the manager and the staff, have managed to get themselves to a place where every game was like a Man United game. And that's why they won the league and finished very close to the year before. So that's what makes you a champion, that you can get to the levels you need to be to win games in the Premier League. Because what you have to accept if you're Liverpool and Man United, that when the fixtures come out at the start of the season, all the teams you're going to play against, that is whether you're got England for United or Liverpool, that's the game that they put a tick against. That's the game they really look forward to playing. And they both of them don't get easy games. And that's why to win the league, you have to be a special team. Because every time you go out and play, it might not be the biggest game you're going to play, but it's a cup final for the opposition.
In terms of the game tactically, what are the key areas do you think we should be looking out for on Sunday?
Well, I think the obvious thing to say is what back four will Liverpool have? What central? I think full-backs are a given. But I think, what centre-backs, does he drop Fabinho back in there, which I think he might do? And then does that take something away from the midfield? I think it does. So I would think for Liverpool, their concern would be two centre-backs. I can see them conceding a goal, but on the other hand, I can see them scoring goals as well. When don't they score goals at Anfield? So I see that area as something that, if you're Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and you're the Man United players right now, you're looking, that's an area you can target and think you might get some joy. I think the rest of the team will take care of itself on the day. The front three have to turn up and the midfield have to get back to that dominance they've shown in the last 2 or 3 seasons. Where they're on the front foot all the time, they're very aggressive. And if you're playing against them, you never get a chance to get your head up. They're always putting you under pressure and making you make passes you don't want to make, or making you make passes where you're hurrying and you're giving the ball away cheaply. See that as an area, I think, for United. Where will Liverpool see they can get joy? I think midfield. I would imagine Ole will go with a more pragmatic approach. And obviously, the biggest threat, I think, for Liverpool is Fernandes. I think he's had a couple of quiet games. I think didn't turn up against City, quiet against Burnley, but we know what he's capable of.
And this is the game, really, isn't it, where you want your star players, your Salah or your Fernandes, to step up and deliver for you, isn't it?
Yeah, these are the games. This is why you pay big money for your big players to turn up in these games, to be the difference in these games. And that's why you break transfer records if you're a big club, and you expect your men to be the difference on these days. Yeah.
So it's the best home record in the Premier League, unbeaten in 67 now, Liverpool, against the best away record, Man United. So how do you see it going? Something's got to give.
Yeah, I just think if we have been talking the last 5 years, I'm saying it's Liverpool all day long. I can't say that this time around, because I just think there is a concern in the middle of their defence, whether it's young players come in or he does something different here again. But I see them being vulnerable there. I think if you were to go back, I will get to answer your question. I think if you go back to the start of the season and you sat down with Jurgen Klopp and said, who's the one player you don't want to be out for a length of time this season with injury? And I think, people might say Mane, but people might say Salah. But I think they've got goals in the team. But you haven't got anyone to replace Virgil van Dijk. I think he's a glue that keeps them all together at the back. He brings a calming influence to them all. So he's an enormousness. United will carry a threat. And you also have to say, it's an oldest cliche you hear when people talk about Anfield, the extra man the crowd brings to the game. That's not there. I've played in front of them. I know how fantastic it can be, especially in this game. And it's very difficult for the referee with a full house not to give a penalty in front of the Kop if there's a mere nudge or an accidental nudge. So that goes against the home team this time around as well. But I don't know, it's a difficult one to call, but I've got to believe that Liverpool will turn up on the day. Alisson will have a very good day. The back four will hold tight, and Liverpool will just have too much for them on the day.
Yeah. obviously in the next few days in the build up to the game, we're going to hear a lot of talk about Man United's title credentials, and obviously if they get a positive result, that will just amplify as well after Sunday. How do you see them? How do you think they compare to Man City and Liverpool? I know you mentioned obviously they looked below the level of City in the cup game the other day.
Listen, they've dragged themselves back into the fight for the championship. Are they playing the kind of football that would suggest they can win the league? I'd say no. I think they've done really, really well, because at United, when it's going well, the praise is enormous, but when it's not going well, the criticism is enormous. Mm-hmm. So they've weathered that storm. They've shown that they can deal with the pressures of that, and they're sitting top of the league right now. Would it be impossible for them to win the league? No. They could get there. Of course they could. But I'll go back a short week when they played City in that semi-final. It was another level, City. Mm. So I think they're just the momentum started with them again. And with Liverpool, will Liverpool make another signing? Will they suddenly get everyone fit but Virgil van Dijk? I just think there's better teams than them right now. If on an even pitch, you could guarantee all the same amount of injury issues or the same amount of luck going forward. No, I don't think they would win it. But it's not impossible for them to win it.
Yeah, and I guess it goes back to what you said at the start about this being an unusual season. It's quite hard to predict, isn't it? It's quite hard to feel. Teams go on little runs of positive results and then have a couple of bad results back to back, and suddenly we're reassessing them again, aren't we?
Listen, that's not just this year. It's particularly unusual this year. But that's the beauty of the English game, that nothing can be taken for granted. I've worked abroad, and if you're a big team abroad, you get a lot more easy games than Man United and Liverpool do in our league. And that's the nature of the Premier League, and long may it stay like that. So this is a very, very unusual, the most unusual season we've ever had, and to my knowledge. But it's not unusual in terms of unpredictability, because the challenge is always there for the big clubs, no matter who they play.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be a good one on Sunday. Graeme, thanks for joining us today to look ahead to it.
I'm looking forward to it. It should be a very special game.